All right, and we are live with another episode of Mentor Minutes. So if you have any questions, leadership, management, simple things, this is a place where real world leaders ask for advice in regards to real world situations. I'll try to take the theory and the principles of leadership and apply them in ways that you can put out there in the real world. So if you have any questions, drop down into the comments section, ask away, and we'll get going with this. Now, if you are coming to this episode late, if you're catching the replay of this over on my podcast, over on YouTube, or on Facebook, you can always ask me those questions. Again, in the comments, I check on the episodes that happened prior to make sure nothing else has come in, or you can always email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com, or direct message me through Facebook. I did have a follow-up question in regards to yesterday's session, and it was in regards to starting a book club. And in this case, the leader actually went and bought books, purchased books for the team to invest in their own leadership and trying to make them better. And the idea is that with that personal commitment of the leader for the benefit of everybody out there, that they would appreciate that, take the bull by the horns, and start reading those things. And that's not what has happened. And there's a couple of principles at play here. One thing is that when you provide things for free to people, a lot of times that free aspect equates to of little value. And that's oftentimes what comes into play on a lot of these things. What I would recommend in these cases is, yes, you have purchased the books. Yes, you have made them available for people, but they're not reading them. So what you need to do is you need to take it one step further, and you need to get personally involved. This is a great chance for you to go back through and read the books yourselves. It's a great principle. One of the reasons that I am having a book discussion in regards to a leadership book every Friday is because I'm going to go through some of these books that I've read before and come back to them a year, 2 years, in some cases 5 and 10 years later, and I know that I'm going to get different material from it, different advice from it. So, but what I recommend is, if you aren't getting the results as far as the development is concerned of your people, if you're investing in them and you're not getting enough out of it, what I actually recommend is doubling down on it and getting more personally involved. When you show that level of effort, you are reiterating to them why something is particularly important. And that's really one of the things that's going to help you drive that forward. It also helps you monitor the discussion in regards to these books. So if you're having some sort of book club, you can highlight some of the main key points that you hope people get out of it. And that can be something that's huge. Luke, always good to see you here. And Janine, yes, doing it a little bit later so you can catch it down in Australia there. Gigi, Maher, so good to see you here. As people have jumped on, go ahead, drop down in the comments. Anything that's been bugging you this week, any frustrations, conversations you might not be looking forward to with a boss or with an employee, drop those down in the comment section, and I am happy to be able to tackle those for you. Mar, good to see you on the other side of the world over there in Saudi Arabia. Got the Middle East on here. I've got Luke over here in the States, and then I got Janine over in Australia. So covering the whole world today. Julie, good to see you here as well. In a lot of these Mentor Minute episodes, I like to take a particular topic of leadership and kind of throw that out there and some of my thoughts on a particular topic. And that's something that kind of strings together all the questions as we look for those questions from leaders that are out there. Today's topic is about hiring and some simple principles that you can put into place to get better at hiring individuals. Now, if you haven't hired anybody before, it can be kind of a spooky process. And I want you to just keep in mind 3 simple principles that will help see you through with this. All right. When we talk about hiring, I want you to keep in mind the 3 P's. That is preparation, practice, and patience. Preparation, practice, and patience. And I throw patience, preparation, and practice. That makes sense to a lot of people, but patience is one that kind of gets people thinking a little bit. And it's really important. Too many bad hiring decisions are made because the hiring personnel are impatient. It is tough to find qualified applicants. It is tough to find those right applicants. Hey, if you find a great one right away, then hey, thank your lucky stars, but it's usually not that easy. In my experience, when I would hire for entry-level positions, usually I would get something in the line of 100 to 150 resumes if I'm putting it up on Monster on careerbuilder.com. I would go through that 100, 150 resumes, which takes plenty of time. And I would only get maybe 10 interviews, maybe 15 at the outside. In those cases, I would interview 10 to 15 people and I would find one or two that were worthwhile. So again, working those numbers, 100 to 150 resumes for an entry-level position often only yields one or two applicants who you would offer a job to. And so it takes an enormous amount of patience. Also, another huge mistake is in the planning of this. We all say, okay, I'm going to post it this week, I'm going to interview next week, I'm going to offer people jobs, I'm going to get them trained up, that should be 4 or 5 weeks. No, it's most likely, unfortunately, twice that much. All right, you won't be able to interview everybody. You'll have the job posted for 2 weeks. It'll take you 2 weeks to conduct the interviews. They will have to give 2 weeks notice. Hey, if you want your team to give 2 weeks notice, you need to let people give their 2 weeks notice. Then they come in, they train for a couple of weeks, but they're still not up to speed. They still need that on-the-job training, and all of a sudden you're up to 8 to 10 weeks to bring a new person on board. Again, we're just talking reality here, and I know that's not good news for anybody that's out there, but it is just the way things are. And so I want to prepare you for that. Patience in the hiring process will allow you to get better people. The most important decisions that you make as a leader is who you bring onto your team. So with that being said on hiring, I got a few more points on here. I see JG has got our first question for the day, and I want to go ahead and tackle that. How would you respond to feedback you believe to have been inaccurate without coming across as a problem employee who doesn't know how to accept constructive criticism? That's a fantastic question, JG. Truthfully, I'll be honest with you, I don't like criticism. I don't know if anybody out there does, but I never really reacted well. I was able to put the mask on, but that was definitely a struggle for me. In the case of criticism, you know, especially when you think there's some sort of inaccuracy in it, JG, but really just in general with criticism, it is important to ask for more clarification and for more details if possible. Get all of the information that you can. It helps you get crystal clear on what your boss or whoever is criticizing you is seeing. What is it that really is driving the particular criticism? Did you miss something that was important? Are you looking at important things but not the important thing that they're paying attention to? What is it? So I would actually, and you can go ahead and say this, hey, I want you to, I'm not being defensive, I'm taking it as is, but I just want to ask some questions to make sure that I get the most out of it. And so what you do is you open it up as questions, and that creates a dialogue around the situation. All right, now you can do a little bit of a dance, shall we say, on this, so that you're not being defensive, but you're kind of playing it out. Okay, so in this situation, so do a lot of what ifs on there. So ask clarifying questions, and then look through some scenarios, do some what ifs. Let me know if that helps you out there, if that resonates with you at all, JG. If it doesn't, kind of ping a thought on here in the comment section and we'll double back to that. But the big thing in regards to criticism in all cases is to get as much information, as many details as possible, and the best way to do that is through questions. Janine's question is the best way to address employee when they had 2 customer feedbacks submitted on the same day. One was 10 for 10 for service. The other one was scathing, demanding I fire her for atrocious service. Customer also posted to Facebook about the complaint. Yikes, yeah. And Janine, certainly that is something that is going to take place. We all have personality differences. We all have low points in our day. The question is, what is the consistency? If this is the only scathing review that this employee has received in the last 3 months, 6 months, then it's something to bring them in on, discuss what it is about it, maybe even throw out there, hey, every single customer is important. This is why we have this list of ways that we handle things, and so it's easier for you to follow along, even if you're having a particularly difficult day. But I would say that would be how I would handle it. So if it is rare, if it is not something that is indicative of this particular employee, then I would give, hey, here's the 10 for 10 on one particular day. Here is the scathing review. Here's what the person wrote on Facebook. Now, what do you remember about that? This is where you start asking questions and you create that information flow for the employee so that they can get the most out of it. And then you reiterate the importance of every single customer. and why each and every interaction is important for exactly this sort of thing. This may also be something that you throw out to the rest of your team as a reminder of how things go. Hey, here we go. We got a great review. And then apparently later in the day, the person flipped a switch and was absolutely horrible and should be fired on the spot. So go ahead and use it as much as possible. Now, if this is something that is more routine, like this employee is getting one of these scathing reviews every single month, then this is something where you need to get serious with them. And it may be something where we have to start working through progressive discipline. And this is something that needs to be addressed. But it has to be something that they can address, that they've shown a history of. And it can be that not following procedures, that's a consistent history. It may be that they messed up on step 1 last month, they messed up on step 3 this month, and they messed up on step 7 2 months ago. But they're not following procedures. So look for that consistent thread if they are regularly having these issues as far as performance is concerned. Tough spot, again, I know you will follow up with me if we have some more on there, but you can do so to here as well if you want. Winnie has the question, and it's, I'm in a job where people are hired strictly by interviews. We have excellent in-house people, but some don't do well as others on interviews, but they would make outstanding supervisors. I'm going to read that kind of one more time to myself, Winnie, to make sure I get it. A job where people are hired strictly. Yep, okay. Excellent. Yeah, but oh, you know, and that's an issue. So what the issue in Winnie's case here is that there's excellent people who could be supervisors, but they have to get over the hurdle of doing the interview. And they don't necessarily interview well, which it's a skill. Absolutely, it's a skill. You know, I don't like that. Certainly, I mean, yes, you need to go through oftentimes you need to go through the procedure of hiring somebody internally into a supervisor position by giving them an interview, but you already have a perfectly good idea of what they're going to bring to the table. And you simply can't discount that. Again, interviewing is a skill, and it would be the skill that would be almost least important as far as being a supervisor is concerned if I had knowledge of how that person was in everything else. So I certainly am not a fan of that particular practice. If they don't interview well, then you're not going to hire them into a supervisor role, even though you know based on their work history that they should be a supervisor. So that would be my concern. The other thing, Winnie, in this case, flipping the switch just a little bit, is it takes practice. All right, it simply takes practice. The interviewing is a skill, you can practice it. So whether it is actually asking yourself questions in the mirror, that's the old classic technique for working on your interviewing skills. Google the top 50 interview questions. Go deep with it. Go 50 questions, because you're going to get some that are really awkward and that you don't know the answers to. And go through those questions in front of the mirror. That's a great way of tackling it. If you know what some of the common questions are, have those responses ready to go. The other thing is to get in touch with your accomplishments. I talk about this all the time, putting accomplishments on your resume. I don't care what it is, you know, that you're responsible for. There's been plenty of people that have been responsible for the exact same thing. I want to know why you're the best. So get in touch with your accomplishments, go through those so that you have those ready for yourself when the interview comes up. All right? It is natural to be nervous in an interview. I would be nervous in an interview. I am nervous before I go on each one of these live sessions. That's a natural human reaction, so you don't need to be worried about that. Simply practice the questions. Don't memorize the questions. All right, that's another key point, because once you memorize the questions, you'll miss something and then you'll go completely off script. So don't memorize, but practice them, have them ready, and get in touch with your accomplishments, and that can help you through it. But it is one of those things, if you are hiring people based on their interview as opposed to ignoring all of the other things that they do every day for the organization, you're missing out on some great employees. Brenda's got one for us, and it's got a little in depth on this one. I have some performance issues with my team and have had the conversation about what I can do to help them improve. And I feel like I'm getting excuses. I've written up some coachings, but I'm hesitant to issue them in fear that I'm just going to piss them off and end up in an even worse situation. Any ideas on how to increase their productivity? I've already tried giving them small goals to reach and have given recognition for their performance when they hit their mark. You know, Brenda, I like the way that you're tackling it. You've had those conversations. You talked about how you can help them. One thing, and you're not getting the right results. You want to carry forward with those conversations. What can we do to help? Where are we falling short on this? Where can I be of service? Look for best practices. So from a performance standpoint, you might have those individuals out there who are performing really well. How are they performing well? Why are they performing well? What tricks are they using? So that you can offer those up. But it's important that you do hold people accountable. You've had these conversations. You've asked to be able to help with them, and all you've gotten is excuses. That's not something that's acceptable, and you need to write them up. Pissing people off is something that occasionally has to happen. You can't always be the good guy in leadership, and I appreciate that you want to be, but you're going to have to toe the line on something. If you are convinced that you have given them the support necessary to perform well, if you've given them the tools to perform well, if you've given them the advice to perform well, then you need to hold them accountable. And that may be writing some of them up. I fall back to an example I used in a reservation center, and there was a particular step that we put into place. It was in regards to spa reservations and asking about contraindications, any medical issues that you might have, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of stuff with a spa reservation, anybody who's made one before, and the employees balked at it being written up for a particular thing. They didn't think that it was reasonable that we would require that. And what ended up happening, there was, we gave them the support, we gave them a checklist to go through all of those things, and we started writing people up, one after another, after another, after another, after another. Finally, one of my best employees got suspended for 1 day. When that happened, magically, the issues never occurred again. They all towed the line. And I hate to say that the employees might be playing a game of chicken with you to see if you're really going to toe the line and whether they really need to step up from a performance standpoint. But really, if you are reasonable in your performance standards, if you're supporting them, then it's their role to step up and perform. And if you're working with them through the entire write-up process, then they are going to find ways to do that. And if they can't, then you need to find somebody that does. That's what you owe the organization, and that's what you owe all of your superstar performers. Remember, your superstars want you holding people accountable. They don't want to see everybody slacking off while they're busting their butt. So I know I kind of came at this with a little bit of passion on it, but you are going to have to disappoint people on occasion. You're going to have to risk pissing some people off, but if you're reasonable and you're making the right decisions, then you need to go ahead and go forward with that. That's your role as a leader, and that's what you owe your organization. So see how that goes, and I think that you'll find once you start writing them up that you will get the sort of performance gains that you're looking for, or at a bare minimum, you'll create a little bit more dialogue with the employees so you can figure out why they aren't performing instead of just getting excuses. Great question, Brenda. I really appreciate that one. Maher is a salesperson, and Maher works in Saudi Arabia at a printing company as a salesperson, and they have big problem in workflow that every single department needs follow-up from my side to complete the job. So I have no focus on my main task, which is selling. Problems everywhere. So is there any plan, suggestion other than leaving the place? Maher, I have been in a similar situation in a small company where, from a top-down perspective, the leadership really wasn't in place. And so, yes, everybody had to follow up on every little thing and every single step along the way. You can try to organize that as much as possible, all right? So come up with your own spreadsheets on what you need to follow up on a particular day. Schedule things out. So if you're working on a particular client, you're submitting it, you want to check with marketing in 3 days. So you're making a lot of calendar reminders for yourself so you can manage it on your end. But you have next to no authority, and this is really a cultural thing is what I'm seeing in here. And so what I don't like to give this sort of advice, but the issue is that you have an organization that culturally is not held accountable for their actions. And so you have to follow up, and that's inhibiting you from doing a good job. Now, what I would recommend is that you start looking and seeing what else is out there, Mar. See if there's any other jobs out there that pique your interest. You don't have to quit right now, but I think looking elsewhere and seeing if there's another opportunity is something that might bring a little bit of sanity. Of course, if you're compensated really well, then it might be worth the headaches in this particular job, but it is really hard as an individual to fight against a corporate culture. You can try, but it's something that is very difficult to get past and through. I'd like to paint a rosier picture of that, but it is really, really difficult in those particular cases. I feel for you. I've been in a very similar situation, and I was not able to turn it around and ended up leaving the organization. Wish I could give you a rosier picture on that one, Mar, but that's my take on it. Organize it from yourself. Talk about the importance of these sorts of things with people. Give them the reason why you're asking it, why you don't want to be asking for it. Set up regular meetings maybe with departments so you can go over multiple accounts all in one fell swoop. So look to do batching. I'm sure you've tried some of these things before, but that might be my advice as well. Jaipal, so good to see you here, man. It's been too long now. What book for leadership that is a hot read right now? So Jaipal, every Friday I am reviewing a new book. So I'm having just kind of a book discussion, going through things. This Friday it is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. If you have not picked up that book, pick it up. It is one of my favorites from the last couple of years that's come out. I did a discussion on peaks and valleys last week, and then next week is either The One or Radical Candor. The One or Radical Candor. Those are two good ones as well. The One is probably my favorite. Radical Candor I hadn't read before. So, but Extreme Ownership is my favorite right now. So check that one out by Jocko Willink. You won't be sorry. And also, hey, Fridays, 12:30 in the afternoon, you will see me here reviewing a book. Again, Extreme Ownership is this weekend, or this Friday, so come on by, check it out, or check the replay out. Not a problem doing that either. Don has the next question. It's how to lead a supervisor to work through their own problems without running all the options through the manager. The big thing on that is to ask them when they come to you, for instance, or if you're a peer and they're running to the manager, ask them, what do you think we should do? Run them through that mental exercise and then check that against how they actually, answer that and whether they're answering appropriately. And so what you do is, how do you go through this scenario? Well, how do you think we should handle that? Well, I think we should do that. You know what? That's the exact way to handle it. Any situations like that in the future, I want you to do exactly that. So you are telling them what to do, because what happens a lot of times is they'll give you the right answer. You say, hey, that's great, go with that. And then they'll come back 2 weeks later and ask you the exact same question. So give them some exercise. Now, a lot of times they will not give you the right answer or an action set that you're interested in going through. In those cases, it's an opportunity for you to coach them and come up with and give them the reasons why you wanted to go a particular route with something. Why their way wasn't the best way to tackle it, and why what you're suggesting is. Again, that's giving them more information, and that all builds up some confidence in them. All right? You're telling them that you are empowering them. You're working through and making sure they have that understanding, and then you just kind of reiterate it. Now, if they keep coming back to you, even though you've had these conversations, then I want you to call it out. Hey, we have had this discussion before, and I said it's okay for you to go ahead and go forward with this, which is what you came up with in the first place. So go ahead and have that hard conversation if this is something that is routine with the individual. All right. Jaipal, I appreciate you subscribing to the podcast. And hey, anybody out there, if you want to take these sessions on the go, it's a great opportunity to just exercise your mind for leadership. The specific situations and the specific questions I deal with have a lot of broad applications. So the specific example may not be applicable, but I almost assure you somewhere in your leadership it will be applicable. And it just gives you a little bit of exercise in your leadership mind so it gets stronger. Tabatsa, so good to see you here. I am caught up on questions, it appears, so if anybody has any questions out there, go ahead and drop down into the comment section. Happy to field those in real time. Otherwise, I wanted to discuss hiring. Hiring's kind of the common thread through this particular Mentor Minutes episode. The 3 Ps, preparation, practice, and patience. We talked about patience at the outset here. Now we want to talk about preparation. And the most important step as far as preparation is concerned is to get clear on what your goal is. As with almost anything, getting clear on your goal is hyper important for you to get the results that you're looking for. So in preparing to interview and bring somebody into the organization, what I want you to do is I want you to look at your best employees. Take your best 3 employees. What makes them great? What traits do they have? Are they highly accountable? Do they work well with others? Are they super great with customers? Do they have good analytical skills? What is it that makes them great? I want you to kind of create on a piece of paper your own little like Frankenstein fantastic employee, because you put that in your mind and then you're clear on what you're looking for from the applicants that are coming in. And you can phrase questions, and that's the next part of preparing, is then taking that amazing employee and firing questions at the situation. 5 to 10 questions is all you're looking for that get at those particular traits. Can you tell me about a time where you blank, where you took a horrible customer experience and turned it all the way around? Can you tell me about a time where you were the linchpin that jumped into a situation when you didn't have to? Can you tell me about a time when you picked up your coworkers? Can you tell me about a time where you were positive when everybody else was negative and things were going bad? You talk about those sorts of things and you create 5 to 10 questions. So preparation, as far as hiring is concerned, get clear on what you're looking for, what makes an amazing employee, and then build 5 to 10 questions that you can ask in an interview that will get at those particular traits. Now you'll go through their resume and everything else, but you'll have those 5 to 10 questions to try to get out some of that information that you're looking for. And Tabatsa, I'm so glad you like the sessions and they've been worthwhile for you. I just appreciate that. And hey, if you know, the best thank you can give me is to share this with somebody else. So if you find it in your heart to share it with one of your coworkers, that's all the thanks I need, but I'm thrilled that you enjoy it. The other aspect of hiring, and it goes into preparation, because I mentioned at the outset of this that I might get through Monster and Career Builder for entry-level positions, I might get 100, 150 resumes over the course of the week. And many of you out there might go, dude, I'd be thrilled to get 5 resumes. What I want you to do is I want you to think about your job listing as marketing, okay? I want you to put together the right wording. I want it to be an attractive position. I want it to be challenging for people. That's one of the things that you want to do. Don't be shy about throwing out how challenging the position is. The right people want that sort of responsibility. But you have to look at the way that you craft your job listing to make sure that it resonates with people so that they do apply. And that's one thing that often gets overlooked. They put up the old stale job description that's been in the files for the last 10 years. They haven't changed the title from associate in the last 10 years. What are you associate of? Are you a coordinator instead of an associate? Look at those sorts of things. And the best way to do this is actually just to look at the job boards and see what's out there. What jumps out to you in similar positions, in similar roles for other organizations that are looking for people? Look at those opportunities and look at those as kind of a template for you to work on, but you need to make sure that you are marketing the position and putting it in the best light so that it is attractive for people to apply. If you aren't getting enough applicants, that might be one of the best things to do. Tom, good to see you here, buddy. Regarding the 5 questions, can you clarify what is the difference between number 2 and number 4? I love this. This is great. So for those that missed it, I have 5 questions that I tell everybody to ask their employees. One of the best things you can do, especially if you're a new leader out there. The first question is, what do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the operation? Where are there opportunities we need to take care of, or take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do your job better? Tom has recognized that questions 1 and 3 and questions 2 and 4 are very similar. And they are that way intentionally. If you want to get feedback, because what happens in a lot of these cases is that people say, oh, nothing jumps to mind. But if you ask them the same question again, you are more likely to get a response. So it gives people 2 bites at the apple. I could reduce that to just 3 questions, but you're not going to get as much. You're also hitting at things from slightly different angles. And it's difficult for people to say, no, nothing comes to mind 4 times in a row. They'll come up with something. So I actually do that intentionally, Tom, and I appreciate that you kind of recognize that. I do mention that to my private coaching clients, that is the reason that that's there. But I appreciate it and appreciate the topic, because that's always a good topic. Again, anybody out there who has heard this multiple times, those 5 questions you should ask your team. If you've heard this multiple times from me and you have not asked your team those questions, I want you to go out within the next 24 hours and ask them. Maybe you send each one an individual email, copy and paste the content of the email to them, and just email it out to them and see what you get back. Make it simple if you haven't tried this before, but you will get amazing insight if you do this right. And I know you'll find it beneficial. Patty, so good to see you here over in New York. I am caught up on questions. Any other questions you have, drop down into the comments section. I got just a couple of things to bring up in regards to hiring. One of the things that comes up a lot is, attitude versus aptitude. And, do you hire for skill set? The answer is, and I think most people come to this, but it bears mentioning, because you will often find that person that's done the exact job that you're looking for 15 years, that has the pedigree that you're looking for, but you are mostly looking for attitude. If somebody does not have the attitude, the right attitude, a coachable attitude, a positive attitude, they are poison for your organization. And I don't care how good they are at their particular job. You need that attitude because it's a team sport that you're in. Even if you are in individual sales like Maher earlier, if you're in individual sales, you still have to work with everybody who's on the team. You have to work with accounting, you have to work with the warehouse, you have to work with marketing. And if you don't have the right attitude, then you are not going to be successful and you are going to poison everybody else that's out there. So that's why I say, ask them a question. Attitude is important. So ask them a question. Can you tell me about a time when things went wrong and you put on a positive face? It's something along those lines, some sort of question that relates to your organization. But making sure that you're addressing the attitude situation is absolutely huge. Because regardless of the pedigree and the skill set of a particular individual, they are going to need to learn things. They are going to have to interact with your team. And so it's almost cliche to mention it, but you do want to hire for attitude, not just for aptitude with your teams. The last thing that I want to mention on here in regards to interviewing is when you're hiring, it's often good to have another pair of eyes on the particular candidate. So I've done team interviews where myself and a co-manager are interviewing a particular applicant, and we can discuss, because you'll see different things. You can also have a peer of yours interview, particular candidates that you like. Don't necessarily bombard them with everybody, but maybe give them another set of eyes. Hey, I'm thinking this guy might be okay, or this gal might be okay. Can you go ahead and interview them? And they have their own set of questions. And so you get another pair of eyes on the candidate. Again, hiring somebody into your organization is one of the most important decisions that you ever make for the organization. And so it's important that you get it right. And having another set of eyes is not a bad idea. The other thing that I want to mention in regards to hiring and interviewing in particular is that interviewing from the other side of the table, when you're interviewing a candidate for a job, is a skill in and of itself. You are not going to be great at it the first 10 interviews that you do when you're looking to hire somebody. It takes 50, 60 plus interviews before you start getting your feet underneath you. So don't feel bad if you don't feel like it's going well. It's a skill that you need to learn, and it's another reason that you bring a partner into that particular situation, is so that you can make the right call, and you're bringing in kind of support and reinforcements for yourself to be able to do a good job. So I have caught up on questions. So if you have a question, this is last call for questions. Drop them down into the comments section. I'm going to start my closing spiel here. Anybody who is coming to this late, if you watch this episode, I did this about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Pacific Standard Time on Tuesday, then you can go ahead, drop down in the comment section. I will put your question to open up tomorrow's Mentor Minutes, you can always direct message me if you want to remain anonymous. That's a great way to do that through Facebook, or email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com. But I appreciate everybody's questions today. It was a great session, and you take care on this Tuesday, or if you're on the other side of the date line, as I know a number of you are, you have a great Wednesday morning, and I'll talk to everybody later. Bye-bye.